Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Azimah binti Slamat from class ESA 1134C. Okay, without wasting any time, I will continue my presentation, which is introduction about Javelin. Javelin is a popular track and field sport that is a present sign inception of mankind. In the ancient day, people used to hunt animal using a spear, and so did the soldier in the battlefield to kill their enemy. With the gradual evolution of mankind, the skill is transformed into the sport category today, and it's a play almost to all nations over the globe. The game is a play in both men and women category, also in Paralympic. It has been a part of modern Olympic game program since 1908 for men and 1932 for women. Javelin considers practice and ability of judging angle, speed, and distance is needed to play this game efficiently. They have two types of javelin. The weight of the javelin is 800 gram with 2.7 meter long for men and 600 gram with 2.8 meter long for women. Okay, now we move to new slide, which is the lever system in javelin. Lever system are the coordination of odd body, therefore our bone and muscle, primarily creating human movement. Lever system, they have two main functions, which is first, to increase the resistance that a given force can move, and secondly, to increase the speed at which a body move. As you know, fulcrum is for joint, effort for muscular force, and the load is for weight. Javelin known as a first-class lever system because based on a picture provided in this slide show why Javelin in a first-class lever system. The fulcrum is a middle between the load and effort. The tricep is the effort, the fulcrum is the elbow joint, and the load is the weight of arm and the javelin. That's all for me. Now I will pass to next presenter, which is Fidaus.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Fidaus from class ESA 114C. So next I will explain about main muscle involved, which is what kind of muscle that may involve in this skill. So as you can see, there is like 8 type of muscle involved. The first is gastrocnemius, the second is soleus, the third is quadriceps, the fourth is hamstring, the fifth is tricep, the sixth is deltoid, the seventh is forearm, and lastly is external oblique. So all of these main muscles are very important and very useful for all the athlete to help them to get the best result in order to throw the javelin. Next is joint involved. As you can see, there are 5 types of joint that involved in this skill. The first is glenohumeral joint, second is synovial joint, which is at knee, third is hip joint, fourth is ankle joint, and the last one is elbow joint. As you can see, all of these joints are located at each of the body part that may involve in this skill, which is each of the movement that all of the athlete will do before throwing the javelin. Okay, next I will explain about bones involved. There are 12 types of bone involved that you can see, which is 5 types of hand bone, which is metacarpal, phalanges, radius, humerus, and ulna. 2 types of hip bones, which is ilium and ischial tuberosity, and 5 types of leg bone, which is fibula, femur, tibia, phalanges, and metatarsal. Next, I will pass to Afifah to explain about form of motion and type of motion.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Afifah binti Dalim from class SR 1134C. So now I will tell you about forms of motion first. Okay, this linear motion, angular motion, and projectile motion occurs in javelin throw. First is linear motion. Linear motion is a straight line motion. This linear motion is the most basic motion in all sport. Okay, this linear motion also divided by 2, which are rectilinear and curvilinear. Rectilinear motion. The definition of rectilinear is all particles of the body that travel the same distance along the parallel straight line. Okay, Based on the video in this slide, you can see there has a rectilinear motion occurs in the javelin. Okay, it can be proven during first phase, which is approach run. You can see on the video the athlete will run first. Okay, that phase is an approach run, and during that phase is called as rectilinear motion. Okay, the approach run is the beginning phase where the javelin thrower runs to achieve an optimal approach velocity. Okay. Curvilinear motion is also occurred in javelin throw. Curvilinear motion can be defined as when there is an object that moving on a curved line. Okay, based on the video, as you can see in this slide, this curvilinear motion occurs at the third phase of movement, which known as a throwing phase. Okay, throwing a javelin at some horizontal line will be occur in the development of an acceleration at some angle. Okay, in the simple word to be understand is, okay, as you can see on the video, when the athlete throw their javelin, there will create a pattern. They will create a curve pattern. Okay, when the athlete start to throw, and the javelin will fall onto the ground. The pattern, there has a curve pattern. That's curve pattern we call as curvilinear motion. Next is angular motion. Based on Jackson 2018, the definition of angular motion is a circular movement around the center point or imaginary line. Actually, when we do angular motion, there has an imaginary line that we cannot see with our naked eye. Okay, when does it occur in the javelin throw? Okay, first there has it occurs in javelin throw. Okay, first is when the athlete rotate their hips at the step 4, which is drive at the 5 rhythm phase. Okay, this action when there has the athlete run, okay, there has passed the approach run, and the athlete will rotate a little bit of their body. Okay, the movement of rotate their body and to throw the javelin is when their hips rotate. It's called an angular motion. Okay, secondly is when the javelin throw is being thrown at the air. When the javelin is throwing at the air, the javelin is actually rotate onto themselves, and the rotation is also called as angular motion because angular is a circular movement. We're at the last forms of motion, which is projectile motion. Okay, projectile is when there is an object that is being thrown onto the air, and the journey of being thrown is called trajectory. Okay. In projectile motion, there has two kinematics quantities, which is vertical displacement and horizontal displacement. However, in javelin throw, only horizontal displacement will occur. Okay, why? Horizontal displacement is when the person stand on the ground and throw the object onto the air, and the object will land on the ground. That is called the horizontal displacement. Another projectile in javelin throw, forces increase by the amount of speed the runner get. The more momentum you have, the greater the force of the javelin. If you add more force to a throw by adding a thrust at the arm and speed by running faster, the javelin will go further. Okay, for the next slide, I will pass to Atika.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Atika binti Sulaiman from class SR114C. So I'm going to share about the 4 pace that we like to highlight in javelin throw movement, which there are approach, 5-step rhythm, throw, and the recovery phase. All of these phases are required for javelin thrower and must follow by its sequence. First, as you can see on this slide, phase 1 known as approach phase or known as approach run, which in this phase it is the starting point of the action. In the next phase is known as a 5-step rhythm, which can apply by javelin athlete before go to the next phase. So basically, 5 rhythm phase, it is the point where the thrower start to build the momentum. So the biomechanical objective of this phase is at the optimal approach velocity as it was at the beginning of releasing the javelin, and the body position still at the planting the foot on the floor. Here also be mean by the step involved in the phase, as the thrower need to approach the stride step to draft the javelin. So followed by the next phase is throw phase. Based on athletic omnibus of Richard Standard, South Africa, thrower phase is where the sequence movement before delivery the javelin, which almost at 10% of launching speed being generated to achieve a maximal optimum velocity. Last phase known as the recovering phase. In this phase, athlete just release the javelin forward and need to maintain their stability, and to exert the forward momentum, thrower must place the leg on the ground. Next, from the result analysis of javelin throw athlete, it can show that the aim of approach in javelin throw is to set up the speed and the rhythm throwers. Here you can see of the analysis of Tom Roller in the game. The angle of the elbow start on 40.7 degree when at approach phase, which consider good as the best angle of javelin throw is less than 45 degree. And next, the point is when athlete run forward, it can build the momentum of thrower. During in this phase, the movement take place in the sagittal plane, and there are flexion and extension happen at arm, hip, ankle, and knee. So I will pass the next presentation to next presenter, which is Afifa.
Now I will explain result analysis based on drawback skill or step. This drawback skill is important because it transfers the momentum that the athlete build it up into their javelin and pile it up to use it as potential elastic energy. Its transfer of energy from the hip to the shoulder to elbow and to their javelin. Okay. The plane involved in this drawback skill is transverse and frontal plane. Okay, next is primarily movement. Okay, there are many primarily movement in this skill. Okay, first is extension elbow. Second is trunk rotation. The third one is horizontal abduction of shoulder. The fourth one is abduction, adduction, flexion and extension of the hip. And lastly is flexion and extension of the knee. Okay, we'll continue to the next presenter, Firdaus.
We explain about crossover step. It can continue building speed and set up a position to release. Besides that, it also carry up the momentum that has been built in non-aware phase. This movement is in sagittal plane, and flexion and extension happen at arm, hip, ankle, and knee.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Muhammad Adib bin Warohiza from SR1134C. Now I'm going to talk about the analysis video of the javelin throw. Firstly, about projectile motion. It defined as the amount of force increases as the runner's speed increases, which means the greater the momentum, the greater the force of the javelin. From this video, we can see that the athlete increases his speed in order to gain more force. The javelin will travel further if you add more force to do a throw by adding thrust to the arm and speed by running faster. Secondly, momentum. In javelin's run-up, thrower begins at the jog, then accelerate into a sprint, and then adjusts himself into a crossover bounding run before releasing the javelin in order to increase the javelin velocity and thrower momentum. In this video, we can see that the athlete gaining much momentum to swing his left hand before making the release of javelin. In addition to the already accelerating javelin, the thrower should have a solid back and explosive throw at the release. Thirdly, the throwing angle. The angle to release the javelin is around 37.8 degree. However, wind speed and direction have a significant impact on the optimal angle of the release. From this video, we can see that the athlete throw the javelin at the angle of 37.8 degree. Furthermore, the thrower's strength and speed influence the direction in which the javelin should be thrown. Next is angular velocity, which means the product of angular speed and the axis around which the object rotates. From this video, we can see that the speed of the spinning javelin once released caused by the angle and the slip of the fingers when letting go, where it should be no faster than 9 degrees per second. By causing a rotation of javelin, additional lift can be created by utilizing a slight negative side slip angle in conjunction with a clockwise rotation about the javelin shaft. After that is torque. From this video, we can see that athletes perform a crow hop or crossover step before the release, which is a jump feat in which the feet move faster and in front of the body. When the feet land, the upper body should still be back and turn away from the sector, converting linear motion to the rotational motion. Furthermore is Newton's first law. From this video, we can see when the athlete releases the javelin, Newton's first law of motion states that the javelin will continue at the same speed. Then is Newton's second law, which stated that the acceleration is determined by an unbalanced force caused by a net force or the mass of an object. From this video, javelin throwing exemplifies this because the unbalanced applied force pushes the javelin with a lot of force, causing it to accelerate. Lastly is Newton's third law, which is stated that there is an equal and opposite reaction from every action. From this video, we can see that when the athletes throw the javelin is forced off his hand. When it leaves his hand and accelerates, this is the reaction. I will pass it to the next presenter, which is Firdaus.
Okay, I will explain about step for maximizing skill for javelin throw, which is work on flexibility to improve range of motion. Flexibility is the most overlooked component of a thrower's training. Lack of flexibility leads to a smaller range of motion. Then, small range of motion leads to shorter throws. Also, lack of flexibility can put the athlete under greater physical strain, resulting in more severe injuries and with more frequency. Next, I will pass to Afifah to explain the next step.
Back with me again. Now I will tell you one step for a maximizing skill by increase the speed. As we all know, momentum is mostly determined by the speed. Okay, this can be proven when you are throwing a javelin. When you are throwing the javelin, you need to run up to build up the momentum in your hand and your upper body power. So the power will transfer to the spare when you are stopped and release it. This is due to the contribution of release velocity, which is the key of throwing distance. The momentum is then converted to the force to overcome the gravity and air resistance, which is resulting the greater distance when you are throw the javelin. Okay, thank you. That's all from my slide. We'll continue to the next slide to Atika.
Having a good projectile motion is important in the javelin throw. By that, the angle to release the javelin play a big role, which is in this spot, as it can affect the projection angle on the projection trajectory. In javelin sport, it was recommended to throw the javelin at angle less than 45 degree so that the javelin distance of javelin will go further. For instance, in our video analysis in timestamp 2.56 minutes, the degree of the thrower elbow is 37.8 degree, while having too much angle will affect the distance. Next, I will pass to the next presenter, which is Azimah.
Okay, for the last step to increase skill in javelin is to improve muscle strength and endurance. For javelin throw, muscle strength and endurance are the key. Strong and healthy muscle of the leg are needed to improve momentum and accomplish high intensity running, leading to effective throwing. The endurance and mobility of the upper and shoulder muscle help to determine throwing speed. Lower arm muscle, including arm, improve the strength of the javelin while throw. The heart and lung muscle well prepared are required for the running and intensive respiration of javelin throw. Stronger abdominal muscles serve as the basic of twisting the upper body and prepare to throw and increase the length of the throw. That's all for me. Thank you.
In conclusion, using a biochemical analysis, biomechanical parameters that affect throwing distance for elite javelin throwers are at release velocity and vertical release velocity. The angle of release is important to get better throwing distance. The greater the height, the lower the angle should be in order to increase the distance thrown. Generally, when the projectile velocity and the angle of projection are held constant, the higher the projection height, the longer the flight time. Hence, if flight time is longer, the distance should be greater. Finally, every athlete who involved in this sport can train their skill by using the correct technique to get better throwing. That's all from us. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.